WXVT, Greenville, Greenwood, Cleveland. Delta News at 5 starts now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Renee Skinner. I'm here right across the street from City Hall, where Southside Gardens apartment tenants say they have had enough. The families I've spoken with say they are living in horrible conditions, and the worst part about it all is the owner won't do anything to fix them. We'll have more on this story coming up on your Delta News at 5.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Schill. Clouds are increasing, and it looks like we just might get some rain. I'll have your forecast coming up shortly. A Greenville landlord, some say, is not providing just the basic necessities. 31 families live in Southside Gardens apartments, and they say the owner of the apartments continues to let them live in unbearable conditions. Now tenants are taking it a step further and want city officials to hold the landlord responsible. WXVT's Renee Skinner is live at City Hall. Renee, what's next for the families?
Well, Steve, the tenants I spoke to say they've submitted this petition right here. It has over a dozen signatures, as well as a laundry list of complaints that go into detail on the living conditions they are facing. They've submitted both of these documents to city officials, and at tonight's meeting, tenants want to address three things with city officials. The first being their living conditions. Some say they have no stove, they have no refrigerator to place their food, there's mold in the apartments. The second being the landlord's response to the tenants when they make complaints, and the third point they want to address is why the city is still allowing the landlord to rent to tenants even though the apartments have building code violations, and apparently his license has been expired. According to court records, the owner of the apartments, Jerry Keever, his privilege license, or his license to rent to tenants, expired back in September of 2012. So these tenants say, why is he allowed to still rent to tenants even though his license is expired? And tonight they want to find out some answers. Now here's what the city has done. They have sent letters summoning the owner to come to properties committee meetings. They've sent him letters saying that he is in violation of Greenville's ordinance, and the city officials tell me the owner refuses to respond to any of these letters. So Steve, the bottom line is this: tenants say we are living in filth and something has to be done. Our landlord is not cooperating. On the other hand, city officials are saying, well, we've sent letters summoning him to meetings to try and get him to take responsibility for what is going on. Now tenants are saying, well, letters just aren't enough. We need something else to be done to get this guy responsible for what has happened. We'll have more on this story coming up on your Delta News at 5, or at 6, I should say, as well as reaction from city officials and tenants involved in this dispute. Live in Greenville, I'm Renee Skinner, WXVT Delta News. Good evening, everyone. I'm Renee Skinner. I'm here live right across the street from City Hall, where emotions ran high tonight at the City Council meeting. The Southside Gardens apartment tenants say they are living in unbearable conditions and their landlord just won't cooperate. They want the city to make a move. They took their concerns to city officials tonight, and we'll have what the city has decided coming up on your Delta News at 6. Stick with us.
A second person has been arrested in connection with yesterday's robbery of two Greenville businesses. 41-year-old Johnny Moore of Indianola is charged with Southside Gardens apartments. Dispute continues at City Hall. During tonight's meeting, Greenville officials have just heard from tenants who say they're living in deplorable conditions and nothing is getting fixed. We get more now from WXVT's Renee Skinner, who's live at City Hall with the latest.
Well, Steve, city officials expressed outrage and concern once the tenants brought a petition and a laundry list of problems they're dealing with in their apartments. As a result, a decision was made tonight. But before we get to that, let me tell you what tenants demanded from city officials tonight. The first thing they are demanding the city do a building inspection on the entire complex. They want an inspector to come out and look at the code violations. The second thing they are demanding is the city condemn the place. They don't want this tenant to be able to rent. They don't want this owner, I should say, to be able to rent to any other tenants. The third being they want the city to find temporary housing for the tenants that need it. And they also, the last thing they want is outside help for assistance finding homes for these tenants. Now, a motion was made to condemn the place and to do a code inspection by one city council member. It was seconded, and as a result, the city has passed this motion. A building inspection will be conducted on the Southside Gardens apartments and and it will be condemned. Now, tenants I've spoken with say they are overjoyed and they are relieved that a decision has been made. And coming up later on your Delta News at 6, you're going to hear from those tenants as well as a lawyer that has been an advocate for them. You're going to hear from both of them on their reaction on this decision. Live in Greenville, I am Renee Skinner, WXVT Delta News. Steve, back to you.
Thanks so much, Renee. Great job bringing light to this important topic. Emotions are running high at tonight's City Council meeting in Greenville. City officials were confronted by tenants of the Southside Gardens apartments where they say they're forced to live in deplorable conditions. We go back now to WXVT's Renee Skinner, who is live at City Hall. Renee?
Well, Steve, joining me live right now is attorney Jaribu Hill. She is with the Mississippi Workers Association. She's also an advocate for these tenants, as well as the Southside Gardens tenants. They attended this council meeting tonight, and they're here to explain what exactly happened during the heated discussion that took place tonight. Now, first, Attorney Hill, can you explain what was ultimately decided tonight?
Yes, well, what was ultimately decided, and I have to really give credit to the tenants themselves, the residents of Southside Gardens who appeared at the meeting, and some of them even testified as to the horrific conditions that they're living under, pointing to human rights violations, civil rights violations, all manner of violations that no one should be subjected to. And we even looked at how these violations and these conditions mirror conditions in third world countries and may even be worse than some found in third world countries. But the bottom line is because of what I call people power, tonight was a victory for the residents of Southside Gardens. Tonight, the City Council voted to go into court and seek injunctive relief on behalf of these tenants to enjoin the owners of Southside Gardens from continuing to do business as usual, including renting out new apartments and collecting rent. It also forces the issue of the violations that have to be identified and cured. It's going to talk about the fact that they're under an expired privilege license. They have no privilege to operate at this time, and they have the nerve to be operating the way that they are. So we believe that certain individuals on City Council took courage and spoke strongly for the tenants of Southside Gardens. We take our hats off to Councilman Eric Simmons and Councilman Tommy Benson in particular, who were quite vocal in their support for these tenants and what they've been living through.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Hill. And also here with me is Natasha Neal. Natasha, when you got up there and spoke, there was a lot of emotion just felt in the room. And what do you think was accomplished tonight? Give me your thoughts on the outcome of this meeting.
Well, in reference to the outcome, I think that the tenants were heard. Their voices were heard. We stood up, we stood out, and we refused to stand down. So I also commend Councilman Benson as well as Councilman Simmons for standing behind us. So as long as we're all standing together, we shall be victorious.
Okay. All right. And my question for you, Attorney Hill,
yes,
is also what needs to happen next for these tenants? What is the next step that needs to happen?
Okay. The next step is for City Council to make good on its commitment that it made by vote tonight, to go into court and seek injunctive remedies to enjoin this landlord from operating in a business as usual way where they have been disrespectful to the tenants. They've been collecting rents and not providing services. The common areas are just overrun with garbage, feces, rat and roach and mice infestation, spider infestation, so many violations that must be cured. And also the most important thing is to be ready to go into court and speak to a judge about these issues. That is so important that these tenants now have folks standing for them and working with them to create a situation where no other tenants have to live this way. It sends a message to all those who would allow people to live in the way that these tenants are living. So the next step is to do motion practice, to go into court and to get the injunctive relief that will stop these owners from providing the horrific housing conditions that they're providing at this time.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. And unfortunately, we are out of time. But Steve, a motion was made, a decision was made, I should say. This is a victory for these tenants, but this fight is far from over. We will be following the story, and we're going to bring you developments on the Southside Gardens apartments dispute as soon as we get them in. Reporting in Greenville, I'm Renee Skinner, WXVT Delta News. Steve, back to you.
Thanks so much, Renee. Great job.